It's said if you place a frog into a pot of boiling water, it'll jump right out in reaction to the discomfort. It will recognize the threat that the water poses. However, if you place that same frog in room temperature water, it will be comfortable and remain there, even if you gradually turn up the temperature over time. Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to break it to you, but when it comes to this question of physical and digital media, we are and have been the frog. Yo, Havoc Nation has arrived. What's going on, everybody? Lost Angel of Havoc here, aka Leitato, the one and only High Priest of the congregation. Welcome back to another installment of Leitato Clips, where we've got a little bit of everything. On July 1st, 2026, Sony announced on its PlayStation blog that physical disc production will be ending in January of 2028 for all new games set to release on PlayStation consoles. To quote the top of the article, in response to shifting trends in consumer preference, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. For those who may not fully understand the latter part of that, they mean when this happens, you'll walk into a GameStop, for example, and when you buy a game, which I imagine will totally be the full price of anywhere between $50 to $70, and instead of a disc, you will get some sort of case that only holds a code for a digital download in the box. Now, this has actually already started to become a thing of concern from back when Nintendo launched the Switch 2. However, what makes this announcement from Sony so worrisome, and I'd say brazen in some respects, is for two reasons. Number one, it came just days after they released a legal notice stating that they would be removing 550 Studio Canal movies from the digital libraries of users in the UK as of September 1st of this year, including old favorites like Terminator 2, Judgment Day, etc. And number two, on the same day as they made the announcement about disc production, they also made a separate blog post announcing that they will be closing down the PlayStation Store on PS3 and PS Vita, effectively making it so that new content can no longer be purchased on those devices. They were sure to include a note stating that players will still be able to download any previously purchased content for the foreseeable future after the close, but, well, that is the crux of the entire subject matter of today's video. How do we trust that? More importantly, what security is there in this digital age of content? The option to buy physical media seems to ebb and flow based on marketing and production costs that companies would rather not pay, as well as the sheer convenience and accessibility of their digital equivalents. Yet, who's actually benefiting from that convenience and accessibility? So let's talk about the business of spending less to make more. Just to get this out of the way, we'll start with the business side of it. To preface this section, I do not agree with Sony's decision here. However, I do, on a certain level, understand the business decision for this move. As important as keeping physical media available is, and trust me, we'll get to that, businesses operate around a core logic of maximizing profits. I think we can all on some level grasp that as a fact. It's present and in our faces at all times, no matter the medium. Video games cost a lot of money to develop. There is the development costs going into the making of the game itself, which can encompass everything from talent acquisition, design budgets, etc. But there's also the corporate side of it, including marketing, sales, etc. All of it dictates the industry as a whole, and right now what we've been seeing, this sheer renaissance of phenomenal game releases month after month, year after year, with simultaneous layoffs of the amazing talent that's been making it happen against the backdrop of corporations only chasing the next dollar. It's an industry fighting for its soul and probably losing. The bottom line is the C-suite executives in charge of making decisions about which games get to live on and thrive and which ones are just dead on arrival or, in best case scenario, graciously executed in front of their communities, don't care about the worlds these games take us to. They don't care about what it feels like or felt like to wait in line for hours for a midnight release. They don't think about what happens when a technical error can delete years and hundreds of dollars out of your life in a single moment with no hope of recovery. All they are thinking about is their bottom line and how much it's costing them to crank out this content. Because gee, how do you gamble the next couple million on the next blockbuster title if you're already sinking that money into something that isn't making back what it cost you to get out the door? Players be damned. The sad part is, In 2026, due to the expenses and demands of everyday life for the common individual, this has become a zero-sum game. These cats at the top collecting their luxury cars, combing over metrics and statistics in their offices, haven't even realized this overzealous and unrealistic hunger for every single penny out of our pocket, plus every second of our time that we only have so much of already, is the biggest thing hurting them and us. Guess so long as they can have the illusion that it's only hurting us and not them, right? But that is a good segue for the next section of this video, which is consumer convenience versus practical ownership. The reality of the everyday buyer is something I don't even think crosses the mind of gaming executives. But for me, for us as gamers and just people trying to get through each day, whatever that looks like, every choice we make with our money has a consequence. And if money isn't an issue, time most certainly is. There are 24 hours in a day. The average workday is 8 hours. The recommended sleep time needed to get proper rest at night is 8 hours. That leaves 8 hours of free time out of that original 24 hours, if you're being optimal and responsible. We still got lives to live too. Socializing, hobbies, generally reminding yourself of the human experience, and yes, probably a little gaming in there too. But again, how much of that 8 hours of free time are you genuinely throwing at a game? No judgment. I think it looks different for all of us as well. We can all have different experiences with this, but it's important to remember that this is the objective reality of most working adults. Therefore, what games we want to play and what games we can play and how much time realistically we can invest in playing is a decision-making factor for most of us. Now, stay with me here. Everything I just mentioned does also come back to convenience, because life is a lot. 16 hours of your day already spoken for between work and sleep, and you've got to figure out how to divvy up the rest each time, then rinse and repeat. Who's really looking to pile on the complications? So sure, save me that trip to the store. I'll buy my copy online, no problem. That helps me out. I don't have to wait in a line. I don't have to worry about there being copies available. I don't even have to think about being home to pop it in my system. I can just download and be ready to play when I get in the crib after my shift. That's perfect. Except, what did this just cost me? Really? Because I didn't buy my copy. I purchased a digital download that essentially, in all the ways that matter, is functionally a license. A license that Sony very recently reminded everyone can be revoked at any time. I traded owning something that I can hold in my hand for the convenience of not having to deal with the bother of having to pick it up. And that is the ugly truth of how we've arrived at this juncture. How do we get here? And what happens next? You know, with the announcement, I started to think a bit about everything when it comes to physical media and digital media. Not just with video games, but with everything. And so, on my socials, I posed a question. Do you still buy physical media, books, movies, music, video games? And if not, when was the last time you did? And or why did you stop? The responses were, for the most part, yes, though a common thread in most of them included the fact that for some things, digital is more convenient. However, the overall sentiment is that people would still prefer to at least have the option to do a physical purchase. I have some close friends and members of my community as well that had some strong feelings about this matter, so when the idea for this video entered my mind, I also asked them to share any thoughts they had as well as any negative experience they may have had already with digital media. My friend Jade expressed that this action will have consequences, guaranteed. He went on to explain from his perspective that when all this comes to pass, we'll then have to just trust PlayStation won't arbitrarily remove games from the storefront on a whim. He also voiced the reality that this decision will not change prices and even more so, likely result in more studios having the notion to lock entire features behind payment tiers. Lastly, he pointed out that this announcement also just happens to come following the decision in the EU to kill the Stop Killing Games initiative there, and that same initiative is struggling here in the US as well. Another friend of mine, Griffin, spoke to me of his direct experiences of losing digital libraries on 3 different occasions. A locked out Xbox Live account that could not be recovered even after a year of attempts due to little help from Microsoft. A Funimation library deleted after Crunchyroll's takeover of the platform, which I do remember that being its own controversy at the time. And an Amazon account lockout due to it being attached to his college email that was deleted by the institution shortly after he graduated, making recovery impossible. Due to all these collective experiences, his sentiment to Sony's news was pretty much, guess I'm not buying games anymore come 2028. And frankly, I can't say I blame him. My congregation Discord server had a very insightful and warm discussion about all of this on the day of. They discussed what it could mean for the future, who could be impacted the most, potential market ramifications, etc. While I was at work and couldn't participate much in the discussion myself, I was very proud to see my community come together and have a practical and respectful discussion on such a subject given the visceral online reaction. I mean, it's wild when even companies outside of the industry are turning it into a meme. I think for me, I keep coming back to the matter of what holds more value these days, ownership or convenience. This whole direction towards the end of physical media, I think, began with music. The minute folks decided that it was easier and simpler to use services like Spotify and Apple Music as opposed to buying CDs, the domino effect was inevitable. Now, most cars don't even have CD players anymore, but most have some sort of CarPlay or USB connectivity function for smartphones or other digital music players. Books, comics, and the like can be bought on Kindle and similar devices, and that opens up the ability to carry around multiple titles all in one device and port. Is it really shocking that video games are now being impacted by this? Probably not. A lot of PCs don't even come with disk drives anymore. Everything's on Steam or Epic. Games on PC are much cheaper than console, but the components to build a PC are already skyrocketing in price. I'm certain that PC will eventually be affected by this decision long term, especially if more companies decide to continue leaning on the stance that when we purchase games, we are not purchasing a copy of the title to own, but instead purchasing a license to the content. This turns modern gaming into a glorified rental cycle, and losing access is at the whim of the same corporations telling us this is the way. And at the same time, while I know there is an argument being made that there are costs associated with producing physical media, Sony is the only party that's benefiting from cutting those costs. We're not seeing the benefit. They're most definitely going to continue charging full price and more for deluxe editions, and Jade's earlier assertion of paywalled content, GTA 6 is already ahead of the curve in that regard, so the future of all of this doesn't really give hope. This situation feels more like the sleazy salesman easing us into another long con, smiling with all teeth saying, "Trust me, bro, it's gonna be great." And unfortunately, we'll eat it up, because at this point, there's really not a whole lot more to look forward to at times other than the next banger release. Final point and thoughts. You will own nothing and be happy. An article titled "Welcome to 2030, I Own Nothing and Have No Privacy and Life Has Never Been Better" was published in 2016 by the World Economic Forum. I became aware of it based on the mention and use of the phrasing "you will own nothing and be happy" by a friend. I've seen a few people echo that sentiment around this news as of late, but I decided to actually read the article in full. I had assumed before reading that the article must have been some profound dissection of corporate greed and society's acceptance of it. After reading it though, I think there is a misinterpretation of sorts. While yes, the reality presented in the article does describe that individuals do not own anything, it also expresses that all of their needs are consistently met, so in essence, it's a fair trade. Real perfect world kind of scenario where everything is pretty much free at the expense of no privacy and AI and robots pretty much do everything. Products or services. It's truly convenience optimized to its final form, but it's the end of the article that really stuck with me though. It reads, "All in all, it is a good life, much better than the path we were on, where it became so clear that we could not continue with the same model of growth. We all had these terrible things happening, lifestyle diseases, climate change, the refugee crisis, environmental degradation, completely congested cities, water pollution, air pollution, social unrest, and unemployment. We lost way too many people before we realized that we could do things differently." It's mentioned that there are others that did not prefer this way of doing things and live outside this perfect city, those that felt all the technology was too much, which is very relatable. One could argue the convenience of not having to bother is the undoing of us all, and the path towards this illusion of perfection. The more we choose the simplest option, the more we lose the agency of choosing something different. And that's what companies like Sony are banking on. They exhaust us with choice in a market oversaturated with innumerable worlds to escape into, and jumping into that escape can be done from the comfort of your own home without even having to go and grab your wallet because your information is probably already saved on the system. It's perfect and effective. We never stood a chance. The only saving grace I see is that There was a time where vinyl was lost to antiquity, and now even artists like Taylor Swift are cashing in on vinyl record sales. And people still find classic game systems. There's even places that still sell physical games at cons. There are so many folks working hard to keep this medium alive. And if you are someone who wants to do their part, support these efforts. For reference, I've linked all of the aforementioned articles in the description of this video if you would like to dive a bit deeper, but for now, we have reached the end of today's video. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think of Sony's announcement? Where do you think we're headed with digital media versus physical media? Either way, I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any way, do be sure to do me a solid and give it a thumbs up. It's a little bit, but it does go a long way in terms of helping the channel grow. And if you want to see more content like this, do be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Once again, my name is Los Angeles Havoc. Thank you for watching Late Tato Clips. We will see you next time, friends. Same late time, same late channel.